Welcome to all of you. I'm Jack Ford, and we want to welcome to this session New Jersey Senator Cory Booker, who is going to join us as we continue our American Cities Rebuilding conversation. And Senator, welcome. It's always good to see you.
It's great to see you, Jack. Thank you so much.
I want to talk about police reform and where we are now. And I want to start with a bigger picture question, if I could. And that is, why personally you are so deeply invested in the idea that police reform is so essential to help with American cities and communities in their rebuilding and moving forward?
Well, I live in Newark, New Jersey, and have for the last quarter century. When I moved there, we had a really serious crime problem. And eventually I became mayor and was tasked with driving down crime. It was the number one issue for voters in my city. And we began to make tremendous headway. But we soon found out that there was this long legacy in Newark of erosions of trust between police and communities that ultimately really undermined the progress we were making. And we had to do a lot. The DOJ came in and others, and they showed me that when you scraped the data and actually created more transparency and accountability, you saw what the police were doing that in many ways were disproportionately impacting African American and Latino communities and violating civil rights. And so we began a much more expansive view of public safety. And a lot of our police leadership leaned in, understanding that kind of transparency and accountability would make the profession better, stronger, but ultimately help us to better achieve what everybody wanted, which was a safe, strong city.
This movement has been subject, as with so many, to fits and starts and making some progress, stepping back, trying to reach out. Certainly after the death of George Floyd, there seemed to be some more momentum here. Let's talk about the federal level first. Where are we in terms of progress coming at the federal level for police reform?
Well, we've got to expand the view of what we think of as police reform into a much bigger conversation about overall criminal justice reform. We know that at every point within the justice system, we still have disparities, whether it's who's more likely to get pulled over by police officers, who's more likely to get station house adjustments, higher charges, longer sentences, and the like. And you just see a lot of disparities in our system that are very problematic. Now, there have been very encouraging moves on both sides of the aisle. In fact, I'm just coming out of a staff meeting where we were talking about strong alliances with conservative groups for more reforms that we're pushing, that everybody understands that, these fundamental ideals in our country of liberty and justice really come to the point of policing in our court system. And so I've had 9 years in the Senate now, almost exactly, and have been very encouraged by how, in a bipartisan way, we've been able to pass some significant legislation. And I'm continue to be in talks with not just police reform, but overall system reform that will help to restore people's faith in the justice system, help people believe that we together as a society can make our community safer. And what is wonderful about this is that through this all, I've deepened my relationship with law enforcement groups. In fact, the largest police union that represents the majority of the police officers, the FOP, has been a tremendous partner in everything from making sure that we have more transparency in policing, to helping with the mental health challenges we have with police, as well as in trying to drive ideas that we are going to, I think, see more of in society that don't put all the burden for safety on police. Like, police officers know when there's more drug treatment, when there's more mental health professionals involved in helping people who are in crisis, the less police have to get involved, the less things will go bad, and the more we create a deeper understanding of what public safety is. As my police director said to me when I was mayor of the city of Newark, true public safety is not having a police state. True public safety is empowering communities so that we're not responding to crime, but creating environments where that crime doesn't happen in the first place. And to have a coalition of people across the political spectrum, and especially from law enforcement, that have a more expansive view of public safety, it's really going to help us to make a lot of progress.
So, Senator, let me ask you this. And you talked about the conversations you've had with other groups and organizations involved, especially police organizations involved here, and the public. Have you found that using the right words to communicate what this idea actually means has been helpful in moving forward?
Absolutely. At the end of the day, we all want to be understood. And I think what advantaged me in a lot of my discussions with law enforcement is they understood that I was a guy that was a mayor of a city with a lot of violent crime, and that I worked closely with police officers, rode in their cars for countless hours, witnessed the incredible courage of officers, know how dangerous their job is. And starting with that basis of empathy and understanding really created a great foundation where my colleagues in the negotiations did not feel they were under attack, felt understood, and had a common set of values about this nation needing to do a lot more to really help and support our police departments. That doesn't negate the challenging issues of understanding the history of policing in this country, the challenges that many have faced in terms of racial disparities and more. So again, it's just indicative of the larger climate in our country. Are we speaking at each other, or are we speaking with each other? Are we seeking to score political advantage or come to common ground and common understanding? We have so much we agree on in this nation in terms of our common values and common ambitions. But our dialogue has been suffering, I think, a lot from a culture of contempt where we are not seeking to understand each other, to lead with empathy, but instead just to try to score political points. And so I'm hopeful that this conversation will grow, become more nuanced, and that can use the wisdom of many different stakeholders to come to a conclusion where we have a safer, fairer, more just system of policing in America.
Quick question for you. On the heels of the midterms, as far as we know at this juncture, what all the results are, do you have any cause for optimism that these results might help to move things forward at all?
I'm a prisoner of hope always. And I think we are dealing with a time in our nation where a lot of the extremes voices in this country are being rejected by voters. And this is not, I don't say that in a partisan way, because clearly now we are likely to have a Congress that has a House controlled by Republicans, a Senate controlled by Democrats. But I just really hope that we are learning lessons in our political sphere, that this culture of contempt that we're seeing in our politics, this zero-sum game that we're seeing in our politics, this sense of might makes right, or a lot of our democratic norms being eroded, that at the end of the day, we're a nation that the greatest calling, seen in everything from our ideal of e pluribus unum to even our pledge that calls upon us to put more indivisible into this one nation under God. I'm hoping that this is a season where the pendulum, having gone so far one way, that we can start pulling the pendulum in our country, where we can deal with difficult issues from policing to immigration and see the truth. The truth there is that there is a lot of common ground and a lot of work we can do together to make us safer and stronger and more prosperous as a nation.
Last question for you. Shifting topics a little bit, you're a member of the Senate Committee on Agriculture, Nutrition, and Forestry, and we've seen recently that the U.S. Department of Agriculture has gotten involved in dispersing funds that were allocated through the Inflation Reduction Act to help with farmers and the economic distress that they are finding themselves in. Give us a sense of what's being done and how it can help people.
Yeah, we have a food system that is so integrated. We are all part of the same food system. And so injustices in any part, whether it's for farm workers, for farmers, for end consumers, it's all interrelated. And we have a farm system right now where we tell people what is a healthy diet, but only 2% of our ag subsidies go to the things that we tell Americans to eat the majority of, fruits and vegetables. And because of so much of the concentration, farmers are being squeezed economically with their share of the consumer dollar going down dramatically as these large chemical companies or large consolidated corporations are sort of putting tremendous economic pressure on family farmers who've had their farms for generations but now are suddenly losing them. And so there are a lot of obvious things we could be doing to fix our food system that would help the health of Americans, who right now most Americans don't realize we have a government where almost one out of three of every dollar we spend in government is for health care, because we have this explosion of diet-related diseases with about half of our population now diabetic or pre-diabetic. And then all the way to, again, the struggling farmers. And there's things that we could be doing to align our subsidies with the health and well-being of families, to align incentives with the kind of agricultural practices that empower our environment. And then finally, is to start enforcing the antitrust laws, Stockyard Act, that were used generations ago to stop the kind of ag sector consolidation that our ancestors from FDR and Truman and Eisenhower saw as such a threat to the health and well-being of American farmers. And so I'm one of these folks that moved to the Agricultural Committee as a New Jersey senator because I know we could do these things better, where everybody in our country would not only do better, but we could create a level of thriving health economically and environmentally that is really worthy of our great nation.
Well, Senator Cory Booker, we always appreciate you taking some time to share your thoughts and updates with us. Thank you once again, and you take care.
Thank you so much. It's always great to be in conversation with you, and I'm grateful for you guys having me on.
Thanks, Senator.